Turn that damn juice on!
Powered by Arkansas, for Arkansas. This is Inside Arkansas Live.
And welcome into Inside Arkansas Live here on this beautiful day in the great state of Arkansas. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching in, I guess, as we're going to have a lot of things to talk about. I guess, listen, it's been a interesting weekend. We're 10 days away from Razorback football. We're going to talk about that in some basketball. But how was the weekend, guys? It's good to see you again.
Weekend was good, man. We have officially passed our last Saturday without college football, so that is very, very exciting. I have no idea who plays this weekend. Don't care. We'll be watching. So it's that time of year, man. It feels really good, and I don't know. Yeah, the weekend was surprisingly busy, but also very solid.
Yeah, usually I can tell you exactly who's playing on week 0. What's crazy is I've looked at the schedule like 3 times over the last week. So like I kind of am like, oh yeah, it's so and so and so. Even still, I looked at it this morning, forgot who's playing, but like you said, Curtis, we will still be watching. That's not going to stop us from watching. Excited to get into some real action. The closer we get, man, you just feel like that excitement builds as well as that anxiety, but feeling pretty good, man.
Florida State, Georgia Tech, I think is the important or the best game. Yeah.
Is it just me or does Florida State normally play a week 0 or whatever they call it game? Didn't they do that last year too?
Yeah, like Illinois plays a lot too.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's like, I mean, maybe like I can understand Illinois a little bit, but like Florida State's, I feel like is a pretty, big brand marquee thing to where it's not like, oh, the only way they'll get watched is if they put them on week 0. Like, I don't know. But
I remember Felipe Franks in Florida played Miami on week 0 one year.
Yeah.
And Felipe like had a roller coaster game. I did not know at that moment he'd be Arkansas's quarterback one day. Is there a game in like Ireland or something this year in week 0?
I think that's the game. It's Florida State, Georgia Tech.
Okay, that's in Dublin.
I think it is. I'd have to double check, but
that's fun, man.
Love it. Yeah. Like if that would, I doubt it'll ever happen, but if it did and Arkansas played in Dublin against like, I don't know, like Mississippi State, because that's probably be the only 2 teams that they'd be like, oh yeah, sure. We'll go to Dublin. Like that would be a fun trip. I don't like, could you imagine Razorback fans from, like down in Stuttgart and the Queen going over there to the Irish places and
how do we get there?
Yeah, trying to talk to them, man. That'd be awesome. So, but hey, listen, you got college football this weekend. We know Razorback football next Thursday against UAPB. And we're going to keep hearing from some coaches through Zoom press conferences. Bobby Petrino, I think, is tomorrow. I didn't see who is today, guys. I should have looked that up. Who's today or tonight?
Couple players.
Okay, yeah. So players are tonight, and those press conferences are going to be at 6:30. So just we had a kind of a good thing going where the press conferences were right before we started Inside Arkansas Live, and then we would have all the clips and talk about it. Well, now because of school starting later in the day, and so we'll have all those clips and. Who knows? Maybe we'll even do a little live action after the Petrino press conference because, let's be honest, it's Bobby Petrino and everybody wants to hear about it. But practices, though, are close to the media. So the next time that you'll be able to see or anybody will be able to see the Razorback football team actually being on a football field, actually doing things that aren't on the team or coaching staff or anything like that will be when they play UAPB on Thursday. And so, guys, I wanted to ask this question out there, and I put the question out there on our on Twitter as well, or X, about spring ball. We went through all of that in the beginning of spring. We know what the coaching situation was, and there were a couple of things that changed, like Jimmy Smith no longer being the running backs coach in the middle of spring, as well as a player like Snacks Johnson transferring out. So little things that did change. But from the beginning of spring practice to right now, with the rest of spring, with summer workouts, and now with fall camp, what we've heard, what we've seen, what we know, all these things put together, has y'all's, you can call it confidence, you can call it belief, faith, whatever, in this team, has it changed at all? Or are you still the same kind of feeling that you had this time in mid-March?
Yeah, me and Andrew talked about this a little bit earlier today on Pot of That Nature, and it's a little bit of a mixed bag. It's like opposite day for me. I will say big picture, I think, more optimistic and excited about this football team than I was coming out of spring. Some of that might just be like, dude, we're about to have football. So whenever that's coming around the corner, I get pretty pumped about it. So that could be part of it. But I do like some of the things that I've heard. Specifically, though, offense, I might actually be a little less bullish on it just because of the offensive line stuff. With the injury to Patrick Kudish, shuffling some things around, So I'm a little bit wait and see, because when we came out of spring ball, they had their 5 starters and they were rolling. You felt really good about it. So maybe another question mark has been added there defensively, though. I got to admit, and if you want to hear us talk about it in depth, definitely tap into the Pot of That Nature we put out today. I feel a lot better about them. I do, because I had some major questions about that defensive line and the linebackers. And it's like Sam Pittman said, we'll see come game day. But I think the additions that they've made and the things that we've heard make me feel a little bit more comfortable about the situation they got going on there.
Yeah, I mean, we're all human, and so we're all, subject to normal human tendencies, and it just is that way all the time. For whatever reason, in the spring, I'm always as skeptical as, negative, and just kind of want to see how it plays out. And then the closer we get to the season, we get to fall camp, we start hearing all the right things. I get a little bit more excited. I start to buy into it. It's just kind of that Camp Kool-Aid. It is what it is. And we try and keep ourselves accountable and try and relax and tame the best we can. But we always feel better about the team right now than we did in March and April. And Curtis touched on, and I agree with what Curtis said of, I feel a little bit worse about the offense following spring than I did back then. And I feel a little bit better about the defense. Overall, I feel better, because I'll be honest, guys, going into spring, I was not excited about going to spring practice. I wasn't even that excited about the Bobby Petrino thing. I was excited to see him, but in my head, I was kind of like, is this really going to be, is this marriage with him and Pittman really going to work? And so I had a lot of skepticism all off season, frankly. And I still have plenty of questions. I'm not like full on, let's win a national title here, but I do feel a little bit better and more confident that this team is going to be a competitive one and going to be a fun one to watch. And so certainly I feel better about the team now than I did in March, no doubt.
Well, and it's funny too, because asking just the fans in general, I mean, they're not, some of them may be, but a lot of them aren't just tapped into where they're watching every single press conference from first to end, and then taking notes and then doing in-depth analysis or anything like that. It's just more of casual of what they read and what they hear and what they see from like us here at Inside Arkansas. But as of right now, just is a simple thing. Do you feel better, worse, or the same? 53% say the same, which is not surprising, because that kind of seems to be fair. But 34% say they feel better than what they did, and there's 12% that actually say worse. So as far as the numbers go, like the same, it's just funny because we can look at the same, and maybe there's reasons people have it or whatnot. But I don't know. I've always felt like with spring practice, fall camp, summer workouts, whatever it is, to me, it's like the presidential election. Not to get political, but it is, where I'm sorry, but in most cases, you can get excited about or interested or whatever once the actual election comes up. But is anyone out there being like, you know what? I don't know who to vote for if it's Harris or Trump. I'm still torn. I need to hear more. I need to know which way I need to go with it. Odds are there's not anyone actually out there that's doing it. It's the same way about off-season football to me. Yeah, there's still stuff going on. They're still campaigning, they're still talking, they're still debating, just like there's practices, there's workouts, we're hearing press conferences and everything. But at the end of the day, people are just going to have their mind pretty much made up to where there's not going to be anything said or done in fall camp or in practice, for the most part, that's going to make anybody suddenly be like, you know what? I thought this team was going to go 5-7, but now I'm feeling 8-4 because of this particular reason or this particular thing. Like, you got to distinguish between just being excited about the season or actually having legitimate reason to believe in the season. But to me, that's how it's always been. Is just people are more often than not just going to feel the same until they actually get the games going.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the other thing about fall camp too is you hear people comment all the time, and fans weigh in. They're like, oh, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid this year. Nope, not doing it. Oh, the media always overhypes this team. And in some cases, like, there's truth to that. But the way camp is set up with, a limited amount of viewing, but then all the press conferences that we have, you get to talk to 2, 3, 4 players every day. Those guys are not going to sit down in front of a podium and be like, no, like, listen, man, our offensive line sucks. Like, they're just not good. It's always going to be, no, they look great. No, we've come a long way. Oh, really excited about this guy. He's going to surprise some people. And then that's what you write about. That's just kind of how it works. So naturally it comes across as overly positive. And the reality, probably in most cases, unless you're at like Georgia or whatever, it falls somewhere a little bit short of that.
Yeah, and I feel like the two narratives or like stances that we hear a lot of are, one, no matter what, after a 4-8 season, nothing this offseason could convince me that this team's going to be good. Like, I need to see it on the field first. Perfectly fine point of view, perfectly fine, like, place to be in if you're in your Arkansas fandom or observation or whatever it is. But I've also seen a lot of people saying completely different offensive coaching staff, completely different culture, completely different everything. And so I'm not comparing this team to last year. I'm expecting good things, and I'm not worried about last year. That's completely reasonable as well. Like, there's no one size fits all of, like, you need to view the team through this lens or you need to have this point of view on it. I think it's perfectly fine for fans to kind of be in wait and see mode. Like, I think that's what makes this time of year so fun, is we're all so addicted to, like, trying to predict what's going to happen and who's going to be on the right side of history. And people mistake us for, like, prophets that are trying to predict the future. We're just trying to do what you guys are, which is we're excited for the season that's coming up. We have our expectations. We're taking the information we see. We're applying it. We're trying to figure out in real time how we feel about each position group, the team overall. And it is what it is. Like, we're not sitting here saying you need to think this or feel this way. Like, we're all allowed to kind of have our own interpretation of how this is about to play out or how we want to view it. And that's the fun, is talking season is almost over, guys. Nobody talks better than us. We love talking season, but I'm excited for action season.
Well, the thing is also with, if there was ever a time that wait and see mode was 100% justified, warranted, needed, and in some cases even, like, legitimate, I think it's this year. Because listen, you went 4-8 last year. We all know what happened last year, but looking at it now, heading into this season and knowing what you know now, like, last year we heard it and fans heard it and all that about how much better things were going to be, and how, the defense had changed, but Dan Enos is coming in. He developed, he's responsible for Tua and Jalen Hurts. Like, he's the reason why they were so good. And then, you hear about the defensive line being so good, and people focused on that. The point is like, you get so much of stuff that gets said to you, and then when none of it is true in the season, most of the time fans blame us that talked about it, or blame the platforms that we've had of just telling and relaying the information that the coaches gave us. But, like, fans have heard that now for 2 straight years about how the team's never been closer. The culture's changed. It's never been closer. And it doesn't mean diddly because you went 4-8 last year. So this year, I think some fans may be feeling this way, but I think the majority of them are like, hey, that's great that the team's close. That's great that the offensive line's improved. That's great that these wide receivers look good. That's great that the linebackers are the deepest position and the strongest position on the team. Like, that's great. But I don't care until we actually see it on the field, until we actually see it play out. We're not going to believe anything, because we fell for this before, and it makes just the disappointment that much greater, like it was last season.
Yeah, 100%. And the other part of the equation here is we can, watch fall camp practices and clips and highlights that are put out or whatever. Everything that we see until game day is Arkansas versus Arkansas, and so that's why we ran into the situation last year. It was like, hey, listen, this defensive line is the real deal. Well, they were okay. The offensive line just wasn't very good. And you really don't know. But what we're not seeing is every other team out there. And so, yeah, Arkansas went out in the spring. They identified some needs that they had that they found in spring ball. And they made some nice additions and added to some depth. And they look better now than they did at the end of spring. But you know who else did that? Every other team in the country, a lot of which didn't go 4-8 last year and didn't have the holes that Arkansas had to fill. So I 100% understand, anyone who is skeptical or in wait and see mode or has pause. In a lot of ways, I do too. But given our platform, we got to be a little bit more, open about how we're really feeling. So.
Well, and really what it comes down to is, regardless of where you stand, if you're super optimistic, you're super skeptical, like you're just kind of waiting and seeing, we all have to not lose sight of our ability to take new information and adjust on what we see. That's what we've been doing all offseason, trying to take these snippets. If Arkansas goes out there and gives up 260 rushing yards against Oklahoma State and they lose 45-20, hell, we can readjust our expectations and say, hey, wow, those front seven concerns really are pretty valid, weren't they? I mean, now we got to really think about this. If Arkansas goes out there and completely locks up Ollie Gordon and shuts them down and they win 28-10 and they just really stomp them, hey, then we can readjust and we'll just adapt how it plays out. Like, it's all going to change. It's all of what we're saying now is just going to kind of go out of the window once we have actual information to go off of. And there's nothing wrong with, hey, I'm optimistic, and then they play poorly. Now I'm less optimistic. Or, hey, I don't think this team's going to be very good. Oh, wait, they're playing well. Maybe they will be good. Like, it's okay to kind of go through that. Like, that's what all this is. That's what fandom is. That's what observation, like sports watching is. Like, that's what we're doing here. And so it's okay to do that. I feel like everyone's so big on trying to be on the right side of history and like call it, which like that's what we try and do. I mean, we literally are trying to make a living trying to do that, but it's okay to adjust your expectations, temper where you need, and just kind of see how it plays out.
Well, and I'll also throw in another thing too, where I'm going to be honest, UAPB is not going to show anything either. Like that, there is nothing about that game that I'm going to take from at all. Now, there could be a thing of like, oh, okay, well, this was a good pass by Taylon Green, or man, Jaquindon Jackson's faster than I thought. There could be some things like that. Yeah. But if Arkansas goes out there and beats UAPB 58-0, that does not suddenly make me go, oh man, now the Oklahoma State game, they got it. They're going to win it. Like, and even if they won by 35-20, where it wasn't a blowout, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh man, this means that Arkansas is not going to win another game the rest of the year. It's like you can take things from it, but you just can't base it off that one game in the beginning of the season in Little Rock on a Thursday night and now have the exact way and path of what the Razorback football team is going to look like. And if you ever need an example of it, just look to last year, where Arkansas's best performance, you can make an argument for, was their first game against, was it Western Illinois, I guess? Western Carolina. And Little Rock, they won like 58-14. The offense was looking as great as it's ever been. They were passing all over the place. The defense was solid. If you base the whole season on that game, you're like, man, this team could go 7-5. Well, they didn't. So it's really going to be like, yeah, the UAPB is a nice little warm up to really figure some things out. Keep everybody healthy, because it seems like anytime somebody plays in Little Rock, somebody gets hurt. But keep everybody healthy. But if you're able to go out there, stay healthy and everything, the Oklahoma State game is really where it's all going to start feeling like, all right, let's see where this team actually stands. So you basically have to wait for almost 3 weeks now to really know what this team's about.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me for that UAPB game is just to get the hell out of War Memorial Stadium injury free, man, because they always get tagged with something crazy. It feels like every year they go there. And yeah, that's true. Teams evolve over the course of the year. Like, you're not the same team in spring that you are in the fall, and you're not the same team on week 1 that you are at the end of the season. So there's a lot of evolution there. I will say that last year in that Western Carolina game, was walking out of there going, they didn't really run the ball too well. That like that, I don't know, like they won the game by 40 or something. So you won't nitpick, but it was like, I don't know, that was a little off. Let's see how they adjust. And then it turns out that was really, really bad. I don't anticipate that they'll have those problems with Pine Bluff, but I don't know, man. If they win 58-0, you're right, John. It's not going to impact the way I feel about anything moving forward. If they win 35-20 or whatever you said, you're going to have to talk me off the ledge a little bit. I'm not going to lie. Well, I'm an emotional creature.
Let me clarify. Because I agree. I should have said it this way. If Arkansas is up like 35-0 at halftime, okay, and then they come in and then they put the scrubs in or the second stringers and UAPB scores a little bit. Again, it's not going to make you feel great, but you can't just look at that final score. But yes, if it's a hard-fought battle and Arkansas is going into the fourth quarter with the game in doubt, then yes, that's so I should have clarified on that real quick. But yes, I agree with you.
Well, I did want to say, because just kind of going off of that point, Curtis, I can think back down. There's exceptions to this all the time where you look bad in the opener. Like, for instance, 2016, Arkansas really struggled with Louisiana Tech, and it was like, holy cow, that team ended up going, I think, 7-6, something like that. Like, it wasn't a great year, but they were better than they looked in that opening game because they beat TCU in week 2 on the road. But the last 2 times they opened the year in Little Rock, they hammered a bad team. It was Florida A&M in 2017, and then Western Carolina last year. But both of those games, it was like, oh, our offensive line up front really did not control the game that much, and it turned out to be a massive red flag. I also think back, do y'all remember in 2014, they played Nicholls State in the second game of the year. They lost to Auburn in the opener, which ended up being a pretty competitive game, but they played Nicholls State in the home opener, and they won like 70-3 or something like that. And I remember at the time being kind of surprised by how lopsided it was. And in hindsight, it was like, oh, wow, that was our first inkling that that 2014 team was better than we thought they were going to be. And they ended up going 7-6, but it was, a team that almost won 8 or 9 games and finished the year really strong. So again, I don't want to say like you can take a bunch from these games, but I agree with what you guys are saying of like, if they struggled, we should not overlook that. If the offensive line does not comfortably win that matchup with UAPB, we have to talk about that. But I agree, though. We're not going to do a thing where, Isaac Tissalah caught 2 touchdowns last year in the opener. And I remember people starting things where they were like, man, this guy's a superstar. Like, truly, genuinely thought he was a superstar. KJ, I think, was like 20 of 24, and people were like, he's got full command of the offense. Like,
Heisman.
Yeah, I think you can only take bad from this, frankly. But,
it's true,
I'm
though.
with you guys, where it's like, ideally, they just kind of win easily and we just move on and don't talk about it. But yeah, and again, really what it comes down to is whatever information we have, we're going to go off of. Like, that's just how this is going to work. And so you guys just strap in and bear with us, and we're going to enjoy the journey together.
Well, and also I keep throwing, we keep throwing in the other season openers or whatever, but that Nichols one, I remember that was the one that Jonathan Williams averaged 38 yards a carry. You had like 5 carries and 3 of them were like 70 yards, something crazy like that. But also, another great example of the other way. Just Chad Morris, but still, remember when Arkansas beat Portland State 20-13 at home?
My gosh, man.
That was a red flag.
Yeah.
If that ends up being the UAPB game, okay, 2-10's happening, folks. Like, we'll just go ahead and start. We'll get to our over-unders later in the show. But if you anybody bet the over and they see that game, yeah, it's going to be doomsday scenario.
Even the year before, you remember Cole Kelly got benched in the first quarter of the opener in 2018. They ended up having like Ty Story ended up throwing like 5 touchdowns, which again didn't mean anything because we found out he wasn't actually good. But there were some red flags in that 2018 season opener where we're like, oh, y'all needed 3 defensive touchdowns to beat whoever, Eastern Illinois or whoever the hell it was.
Yeah, Eastern Illinois. I remember.
Yeah. That was, I think that may have been the biggest blowout of Chad Morris's tenure at Arkansas that he won. There's only
5-20, I think, is what it ended up.
Yeah, something like that. So, yeah, not exactly giving people a lot of faith. Those were back in the days where Arkansas scored like 30 points against Alabama, but they gave up like 63. But everyone's like, hey, Arkansas scored the most points against Alabama this season. Like, that's how bad it was. You had to use those as little victories. But
I guarantee you, I tweeted that at some time.
Yeah, like I'm sure I did too. It's like, hey, hang the banner. You scored the most against Alabama, a really good football team.
That was the year that they lost to Vandy at home, which I know in the context of it made sense, but it's like just historically, when you look back, it's like anytime you lose to Vandy at home by more than a touchdown, you got to reassess your entire program, and Arkansas should have in that moment.
Well, and not to keep hammering this thing, but 2 things from that game. One, that's when my buddy, who you guys know, Devin, was feeling himself a little up in those north end zone seats when no one was here. No one's at the game. So, but he saw Ryan Pulley completely whiff on a tackle, and he screamed at him, and Ryan Pulley heard him from up there and looked at him. So there was that. And 2, people talk about, like, if you look at Missouri's schedule, like for instance, this year, it's so easy comparatively speaking. And I had somebody say, it's like, when's Arkansas going to get an easy schedule like that? I was like, they had 2 years of an easy schedule, the Chad Morris years, because they had Colorado State was their big non-con game. And also they played Kentucky and Vanderbilt in their Eastern opponents those years. So yeah, if you're ever wondering when that schedule is going to happen, Arkansas had their chance. They just sucked really bad. And it didn't matter.
Like when you get to the Chad Morris part of the conversation, it's time to turn the page.
Yeah.
I was recording the Locked On pod that goes out a little bit later today, and I, for whatever reason, got back into the John Pelfrey days, and I stopped myself mid sentence. I was like, it's time to wrap it up. Like, what are we doing here? We can't do this.
Yeah, can't be going down those routes already, especially here on a Monday in the very early parts of it too. But
there's so much PTSD on this show, it's not even funny.
I know, it's so bad. It's so bad. Few people though getting in the chat. This comes actually from Hayden. We were talking about Tesla. He says, question for the boys. Did Tesla just completely disappear? I remember his name being heard a ton of time this last year. Now it's just radio silence on him from the most part.
I think part of I don't know if it's an issue. I don't know if that's the right word, but he was such a camp standout, like a fall camp warrior last year, that nobody really cares about what happens with him at camp. It's all about translating into the game and getting separation and, getting those targets or whatever. But yeah, he was an absolute beast in camp last year, but it is really interesting, to your point, Hayden. I think with the wide receivers, you know, obviously you hear a ton about Andrew Armstrong, Tyrone Broden, who both been banged up, and Isaiah Satania. And then behind them, you immediately look to those guys who contributed and are back from last year, like Tesla, like Jaden Wilson, and guys like that. But those have not been it's not the flavor of camp, man. I mean, it's Monte Harrison and CJ Brown and, you know, Jordan Anthony now all of a sudden. So it is a really good question. And I do wonder what it's going to look like, you know, when they travel to Stillwater. How many receivers do they take? Because we're talking about 9 or 10 guys consistently. They're not going to travel that many. It's just going to be weird to see a couple guys who have maybe helped you in the past, or you really feel like could help you this year, and there's not room for them on the bus. I don't know if it's a good problem to have or not, because there's not separation in that depth behind the top guys, but it's, I'm fascinated with this wide receiver position for whatever reason.
Well, and that also with the UAPB game, I think that's also going to be a really telltale sign too. They're probably going to roll out as many wide receivers as possible and seeing what they got. And then maybe based on their performance, that's what we'll know what they take to Stillwater.
For sure. I mean, he hasn't completely disappeared, but I would say this offseason he's been safely supplanted as a starter. I don't think that's unfair to say. I mean, because last year he started, I think, like 8 or 9 games, like most of the time. So he's definitely been passed up on the depth chart. He's starting to have a little bit of a resurgence here the last like 10 days. Petrino said some nice things about him. I believe he caught 2 touchdowns in the most recent scrimmage. And so we'll see how it works. But yeah, I mean, in terms of public perception and where we all view him, it's definitely a lot lower than maybe this time last year where we thought he was the number 2 guy. I think he's more in that 4, 5, 6 range for sure. Yeah.
I mean, he was a hot commodity coming out of that D3 school or whatever it was from Michigan. Hillsdale, yeah. Because I'm pretty sure he had like offers to Ole Miss and things like that. So,
I thought he was going to go to Colorado, frankly. Like I remember that being a huge thing because they took a picture of him with a Tesla and everything. And like I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, that actually is.
A&M, I think, was recruiting him as well. Like, yeah, he definitely had a legit offer list coming out of Hillsdale.
Yeah, and I remember actually when I interviewed him when he first committed to Arkansas, I had a Zoom interview with him, and he said, and I asked him like, "Hey, how do you pronounce your last name?" He said, "Just make it sound like coleslaw." So I was like, "Okay, Tesla, coleslaw, everything." But you know, people like broadcasters, I feel like they got his name wrong all the time last year. So
T-Slaw.
T-Slaw. Yeah, T-Slaw, not Tesla. At least I can understand that one, but T-Slaw. It's like that's not even that's like the 4th option you should have when you're going down there. Let's see. Zach also says, he's like, when Jaden Wilson scored in the first play of the season last year, I thought we were winning the Natty. Oh, okay. That's reasonable.
By the way, I want to give myself credit. I want to pat myself on the back here. I remember telling Curtis in that literal moment, I said, that's the worst thing that could have happened to this offense. I'm not even joking, because I think he had like 3 receptions for like 80 something yards that game. And like, it's like, oh yeah, it was him and Jaden Johnson both had huge games. And I thought they both sucked at this point last year. Turned out Jaden Johnson might be pretty good. But I remember being like, that's the worst thing that could have happened, because now he's going to play the whole year. And it turned out he wasn't that good last year. And now they've kind of come to terms with the fact that he's not one of their top guys. But I remember being like, ooh, that's not what you want to see. Because, again, against UAPB, you can have whoever you want to score a touchdown could score a touchdown against UAPB. So you got to be a little selective if you're the coaches and kind of, play it right.
Mm-hmm. You know who couldn't score a touchdown against UAPB? Malik Hornsby.
Yep. I was going to say.
And Rocket Sanders last year, they had that boy in hell. They had him clamped up last year. Y'all remember that?
Yes. And I remember it drove me up a wall, because I was like, hold on a second. This dude's like now supposedly like 252 pounds, Rocket Sanders, built like a truck, faster, stronger than ever. And you're telling me that UAPB linebackers are just fleecing them in the backfield? Come on now.
I do remember, though, that first UAPB game in 2022, I remember Keytron Jackson catching a touchdown, and I was like, that's a big deal.
Yep.
Or it was 2021. It was his freshman year. And I was like, that's a big deal that he caught that touchdown. Hell yeah.
Keytron Jackson not emerging as a legit top option wide receiver at his time at Arkansas is going to forever be a shock to me. I was so in on him, man.
Davion Dozier is our second chance with Keytron, because they're like, I'd say they're very similar, like they're a little bit different builds. I think Davion's a little taller and skinnier, but they feel very similar to me. So it's like, I feel like Davion's our second chance.
Yeah, Keytron Jackson, I think it was the Texas A&M game that Arkansas lost, but because of the KJ Jefferson diving play or whatever. I'm pretty sure like that was the last time I heard Keytron Jackson's name, because he had a huge touchdown pass or catching that. I was like, man, you got to get this guy the ball more. And then he ended up transferring to Baylor. Yeah. Haven't heard of him.
He and Snacks, it was a trade.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they got Snacks back somehow.
Yeah. Who's the other defensive back from Baylor? They got another one too.
Walcott.
That's right. Walcott. Yeah.
It was pretty good. He wasn't bad.
No.
Who's the quarterback from Arkansas, from Earl, that was at Baylor for?
Oh, Gary Bohannon.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Not Matt Bohannon. Gary Bohannon.
That's right. Shout out to Matt Bohannon. He's here.
Yeah. In fact, that is kind of weird because I feel like there's a lot of Bohannons. That's like maybe a big Arkansas name. So yeah, a lot of Bohannons out there. But yeah, there another one. Yes, Rob. We remember how hot it was in the Little Rock game. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, we remember that. Definitely the most miserable. Oh, and I still love it. They moved up the game to noon because of the heat.
That was so strange.
But but here's the thing: is like, so I was like, I found this out. I asked, I'm like, that makes no sense at all. But what it was, apparently, this is according to sources, the city of Little Rock and the police department, everyone like, we don't want people tailgating all day out in the heat, which could kill them, and we don't want to deal with that. So we're going to move the game up so that way they don't have as long to tailgate. And then it should be better. That's what I heard. So it had nothing to do with the Razorbacks and the football team. It was more about the fans and those crazies down there in the tailgating lot of Little Rock. So
at least this one is at night. Somebody in the chat earlier said it was supposed to be 95 in Little Rock on that day. I haven't fact checked that, but at least the sun will be going down a little bit. It won't be entirely miserable.
Keon Stewart was so worried about the heat that he drove his car 150 miles an hour. The day before that Little Rock game.
I remember that. And finding out about that in the press box, like, oh, he's not here. Oh, that's why.
Yeah. Was that wrong? Can you not do that? Like,
don't think so. No.
Yeah.
Wasn't he trying to catch the bus or something though? Or
that's what I'd say.
No, I'm serious. Am I crazy? Or
I think you are. I think
that
happened in the middle. I think it was like 3 a.m.
Oh, never mind. Yeah. Forget I said that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he wanted to.
Wait a minute, guys! Don't leave me. Yeah.
He wanted to get there early, just to make sure he doesn't miss the bus. So that's where it came from. Let's see, Bohannon, a different Bohannon. Lots of Bohannons. Do we expect long sidelines throw this year or more middle of the field crossing routes? Well,
if we know by Vitrino, we know they're going to be running a lot of crossers, a lot of mesh concepts, slants. A lot of over the middle of the field, a lot of option routes. I think, dude, I don't understand why any college team would intentionally have their quarterback not throw over the middle where he can clearly see stuff. You know what I mean? Like have all your concepts right around there.
Yeah. I even thought I remember back to that Texas A&M game in 2011 where Jarius Wright had like 280 yards reception or whatever. He was just in the middle of the field for every play. They just never guarded him. Like just like in right smack in the middle of the field. Tyler Wilson was like, that was the easiest because I think he threw for 500 yards in that game or something. But he's just like, that was easy because he was always open.
That's why I think Andrew Armstrong is going to have such a big year this year because I felt like that was him last season. It's like, man, nothing is going on. This offense can't move the ball. Oh, there's a 16-yard reception. Andrew Armstrong's wide open over the middle, like over and over and over and over again. So,
I always felt like, too, I don't know if you guys remember it, but like speaking of Armstrong, and not surprising, I feel like there were so many times where he was wide open and he knew it, and he would get so mad after KJ would either take off running or get sacked or throw, like he would just be jumping up and down like so mad. I was like, yeah, I'd be mad too. Like I want to say there was a game in Fayetteville where he was so wide open in the end zone for like a 38-yard touchdown pass that like I could be wrong, but I felt like he was almost doing jumping jacks in the end zone, like just doing this, and still nothing happened. But yeah, hopefully we don't have to see many of those things. Hopefully the decisions that get made will be a lot quicker and a lot better. All right, so we'll continue talking a little fall camp and everything here on the show. And once again, folks, we have our poll question for here today here on the Inside Arkansas Live, and is, of course, presented by our friends over at Alumni Hall. For those of you who are needing all your Razorback apparel, it's the ultimate Razorback shopping destination, and we're proud that Alumni Hall has partnered with us for the football season this year, heading up right into the December month. So anytime that you're needing the best type of Razorback apparel, it's at Alumni Hall. It's right there at 3417 North College Avenue. You can also check them online and be able to have everything shipped directly to your door in time for football season, which I know a lot of you think, 10 days, I got plenty of time. Well, get on top of it, get after it, get on it now, and head up Alumni Hall. Again, alumnihall.com. Get all the Razorback apparel. They got the nicest stuff for men, women, kids, pets. They got decorations. everything Razorback, everything for you. So check out the ultimate Razorback shopping destination at Alumni Hall and alumnihall.com. Okay, so I wanted to bring this up, guys, too. And Curtis, you kind of posed this question, and we were talking about in our group text for just an interesting segment, which the responses have been pretty interesting. Dealing with it is, and I got to make sure that I word it correctly because sometimes, people don't listen. If you couldn't be a Razorback fan, who would be your team and you root for in college sports? I think is essentially the gist of it. Yeah. And I want to ask, though, what made you come up with this question? Was it something you just thought about, or was it somebody that told you, like, I'm not rooting for Arkansas anymore, I'm rooting for this team?
I was listening to just a completely unrelated show, and somebody else started talking about that. And I thought, you know what, this is a good idea. It's a good idea that we could roll with. And I always wonder about that because Arkansas, it's a little bit different, right? Like there's no pro teams or whatever. Like your allegiances are just so strong to the Razorbacks if you're a fan, especially within the borders of the state. A lot of people have probably never even thought about it. Like, what if the Razorbacks weren't a thing? Who would I root for in that case? I know I've got probably a few different answers, but I was looking at some of the responses there. Some of them I agree with, some of them were funny. I was surprised at the amounts of LSUs I saw in the reply. Yeah. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I was weirded out by that because I was thinking some people would just be like, probably UCA, or Arkansas State, or something like in-state because it's still Arkansas. I was like, okay, you can. I guess it's a cop-out answer, but yeah, the amount of LSU. And honestly, like there's somebody, it's his name Hogwarts 69, really clever. But it's they said Louisiana Tech or Louisiana Monroe would be the ones that they root for. So a lot of Louisiana flavor. Okay. Andrew Ellis.
I went to Louisiana Tech, and I still don't root for them. I don't root against them. I just like when I see their score on the bottom ticker, I'm like, oh, okay. You know what I mean?
I think there are two different ways to approach this question. I think one, just in general, like any team in the country, but then one, like if you were still an SEC fan, like who would be the SEC school that you got behind? Because like for me in general, like when I grew up, I was kind of a North Carolina fan because I liked the colors. I thought that was cool. So, okay, they're pretty decent at football most of the time. They're always really good at basketball. Could have fun with that. I kind of liked Oregon. I'm a big Villanova basketball guy. But when it gets to the SEC, it's tough, man, because of the rivalries. And it would be easy for me to say Missouri, and I get accused of being a closet Missouri fan all the time. The shtick behind that is I lived there for 15 years. My dad's been there for like 40. So I just know so much about him.
When your dad is he actually is a Missouri fan.
He is, right? Yeah, no, he is a Missouri fan, and he's an Arkansas fan too, but he's been in Missouri so long that like his allegiances have flipped. And when the two teams get together, we usually have some heated discussions about that, but it's really not them. I was thinking about SEC, maybe Florida, maybe
the swamp.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean that
Joakim Noah.
I would probably go Florida.
Yeah. Of all the library that Andrew could have mentioned of a Florida person, you mentioned Joakim Noah.
Two-time champ.
Yeah, that's true.
Champ.
That's true. Honestly, because I thought about this too, just as far as SEC goes. Mm-hmm. To me, it's Georgia, not just because they're good, but the reason I say Georgia is because I feel like as a Razorback fan my whole life, I've been pissed off at some team in football for some reasons. Sometimes it's a legit reason, sometimes it's stupid. But I kept thinking, I'm like, I don't ever find a time that I hated Georgia, or like I always liked Mark Richt when he was the coach there, which was the majority of my fandom in the SEC. I don't have a problem with Kirby Smart. Like I liked Matthew Stafford. I liked was it DJ Shockley way back in the day? David Green. I like Noshawn Moreno. I liked AJ Green. There was just never any players I hated. There was never a coach I hated. I never felt Arkansas got screwed in any game that they went up against Georgia. So I don't know. I feel like if I had an SEC team, not just because Georgia's good in football, but I just have never had an issue with Georgia.
I hated Aaron Murray, who did you hear his voice? He does games every now and then for CBS. Just listen to his voice without looking at him. You will think it's McLovin. He sounds exactly like McLovin. But I think Georgia's an answer that a lot of Hog fans probably, especially when Pittman first got hired, and it was kind of like that whole thing was a thing, and Kirby always speaks highly of him. Georgia's hard not to like a little bit. My SEC answer might be a little controversial. Boomer Sooner. I don't know why. I've never had any issue with Oklahoma. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, I didn't grow up in the state of Arkansas, so maybe I wasn't close enough. My dad's an old man, but he like didn't really dislike Oklahoma. Like, he always hated Texas. Like, I don't know. I've never had an issue with Oklahoma. They've had some fun skill position players over the years. I grew up with a guy, Cody Ford, who played there, and he's in the NFL now. And so, like, I always kind of like kept an eye on them. Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, great classic uniforms too. Like, they're just one of those, when you think about like tradition in college football and like programs that are staples, they're one that like has stood the test of time. I don't know. I've just kind of always not liked Oklahoma, but just I don't have any hate in my heart for them. But my answer, if we're going general college football, USC. For some reason, when I was a kid, obviously they were like, Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, and all that. They were so cool. And I remember staying up till 9 p.m. to watch Arkansas lose 70-17 against USC. And I just remember feeling like Arkansas, it was like we were playing a different sport, man. I was like, oh, this is crazy. Like, this doesn't even feel like a college team. Like, I thought they were so cool. My buddy actually had a USC themed birthday party when we were growing up. And so we still to this day, we accuse him of being a fair weather fan, like a bandwagon fan. And there's like footage pictures of him with a USC birthday party. It's like, you can't say you're not a bandwagon fan if you had a USC birthday party in 2005.
Right. And I think I was I was looking at it from a standpoint of just like school in general and like maybe not just the lens of college football. And that's why I said Florida, because I'm like, well, they're pretty good at everything. And I stayed away from Georgia because I always suck at basketball. But yeah, football only. I think Georgia's a great answer there. You mentioned Oklahoma and it being a little bit controversial. I'm not going to lie to you, from a athletics in general standpoint, low key, I kind of like Auburn. I know it's going to piss people off. But I do. I love Bruce Pearl, man. I absolutely love him. I watched him play when Arkansas is not playing. Football, you can miss me with that, but the eagle flying around or whatever is kind of cool. So sneaky under the radar, a little bit of Auburn in me.
Y'all ready for this one? Alabama. Don't hate them. What do I have to hate Alabama for?
Nate Oates. I hate Nate Oates.
Okay, fair enough. They
are fun to watch.
Historically, when I think about it, like football especially, I'm like, Arkansas hasn't, for most of my lifetime, Arkansas has not really been in competition with Alabama. So it's not hard for me to be like indifferent towards them, I guess. And like, I don't know, I just kind of respect the program and all that. But I've always said this, that like with any big rivalry, we all find ourselves leaning one way or the other. Every year during the Iron Bowl, no matter what, I always kind of just lean Alabama. I don't know what it is.
No, I think I do too. And I think it also goes back to Arkansas has been screwed by Auburn in football all the time. So like it feels like it's always that. So there's a part of it. But going back to your Oklahoma take, the reason I hate him is because a Boomer Sooner gets played like nonstop, and I can't stand it. Like,
Jim Ross loves Oklahoma. The old wrestling commentator.
Yeah,
he used to come out to that song. That was classic.
Yeah, dude.
So Stone Cold's music.
That's like, hey, but USC though, I was down with that too. I was a big USC fan because they were cool.
Great unis.
Yeah, it's a really good call. Really good call.
Yeah, USC would be pretty great. I guess the only other one I'll throw out, and it would not has anything to do with necessarily sports, but I've just always, for whatever reason, thought it was cool and they should be better at sports, is Arizona State. Don't know why. Have no clue why. But I just like the colors and the Sun Devils and I don't know. I feel like it's kind of cool and it should be better.
I love that. Yeah, I like that too a lot. The Sun Devils are cool. And for the same reason, I'm kind of that way about Oregon State. Beaver Fever. I love the uniforms. I have a friend who has actually had a pseudo relationship with someone who was kind of involved with Oregon State, and that only strengthened the bond there, John.
Baseball. I can't.
Yeah, I was like Oregon State.
Yeah, because of baseball. And, yeah. Well, I mean, listen, in Indianapolis, I rooted for Oregon State in the tournament, and and oh gosh, I'm blushing.
Well, last thing I'll say real quick. Sorry. I cheer in sports a lot for individuals. Like I just find myself gravitating to players and coaches and whatever it is, especially at the professional levels. That's really what it comes down to. And so that's what also makes it so tough that I hate LSU, think about how many cool, like some of the coolest athletes in the world in any sport have come from LSU. It's really annoying. And you have to wait until they graduate or move on before you can cheer for them. I mean, Joe Burrow, Odell Beckham Jr., Sha'Carri Richardson, the kid Mondo Duplantis, who's breaking up, like every like athlete who kind of takes the world by storm. A lot
Livy
of them
Dunn.
LSU. It's kind of crazy. They become like household names while they're in college. It's ridiculous.
I was gonna say Livy Dunn. You didn't even mention Livy.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Honey Badger. I mean, for some reason, if you want to be a famous athlete,
Go to LSU.
you probably got to go to LSU.
Yeah. Or even Coach O or go play those Go Tigers.
Dylan Cruz, Alex Bregman. I mean, they just have some.
They got some good. Yeah, they got some good to it. Also, I'm going to bring this up real quick before we move on. Ace is like, hey, it has nothing to do with A-State girls, John, huh? Here's my thing. Okay, everyone, there's a lot. Just in. Most major universities have a lot of attractive women. You know, it's not like, ooh, Arizona State, man, that's where all the hot women are. Dude, every school in the SEC, everywhere you go, there's going to be attractive women. So, like, that's what always cracks me up. When I come down on you, Ace, it's just funny because everyone's like, oh, man, but the girls over there and at USC or wherever, there's so much. I'm like, they're everywhere. Like, every major school you go to are going to have those. So
squirrels on the campus, too. I'm so tired of colleges being like, our campus has squirrels that you can walk around. Every campus has trees and squirrels.
Isn't Arizona State like a huge party school?
Oh, yeah.
It's like number one,
That's
I think.
probably why.
Yeah. Well, they also, it was Arizona and Arizona State. They were also kind of low-key made famous because they were, not that I would know, featured on like the Girls Gone Wild videos back in the day, like that they would try to sell. And I think that they would, they go to those campuses. People forget like that happened. Playboy came to a lot of the SEC schools and U of A was one of them. And they had things were different way back when than what it is now.
Wait.
Rob Gronkowski. That's how him and his brothers ended up at Arizona. Is like they're from Buffalo, but they were like, hey, please come for a visit. And they had such a blast on that visit. They were like, oh yeah, we can make it work here.
Did you say Playboy came to Arkansas?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. They were doing like their college edition and they would
was
literally
this during your time or
no, this was just slightly before my time.
Okay. Right.
Because we're going deep cuts here. My understanding was because of the show Simple Life that Paris Hilton was in and Nicole Richie that was in Arkansas. People forget Paris Hilton had a boyfriend, which whatever, that was a student at the U of A, student at University of Arkansas, and she'd come into Fayetteville and visit him. And I'm like, man, I'd love to interview that guy. I'd love to talk to him about what that experience was like. But anyways, that kind of like made something about Arkansas very interesting. And I think it was about a year or two after that show had come out is when Playboy, they not just did Arkansas, but they went to like Arkansas and these other schools, but they had, Playboy edition of, and they were, back then there wasn't social media or anything. It's just word of mouth. It's like, hey, you come here, you pose, you get X amount of money. And a lot of these college kids those days were like, I could use an extra $1,000. Who's going to know? So, that was, again, different times, man. Different times. Yeah. Going into real deep cuts here. Probably need to move on from that before I get into it. Suddenly our viewership went up. I can't imagine why. But anyways, we wanted to also talk and shift gears a little bit to talk some Razorback basketball, because I think that there's been some fascination. First off, as we will make this part of your Arkansas update presented by, of course, Davis and Garrett Insurance, your independent auto owners insurance agency, securing what matters the most. Give a shout out to my boy Clayton over there. Hit him up, and he'll get you done with all the insurance stuff you need. So first off, Arkansas, apparently, guys, this is shocking to me. They sold out their season tickets for basketball this year.
No way.
I never would have guessed. But
4 years in a row?
Yes, 4 years in a row. 4 years in a row. I was worried when Cal came in if they were going to be able to keep it going. But
you remember when he said at his press conference, he looked over at Yurchek and was like, I don't have to sell tickets, right?
He's like, yeah, you'll be all right. If they could sell tickets back when they were doing that stupid song and dance routine in the pregame, then I figured they would sell it out with Cal.
You didn't like the circus, huh?
No.
That stupid ass song. No disrespect, but
no shade though.
No disrespect, but nobody showed up an hour early to watch it. Just saying.
Because there's a few things for Cal. I want to bring up one of his tweets here in a second, but this was a pretty interesting thing that I guess was on CBS Sports, and you know, it was, guess who was it Gary Parrish? I look at the article. Oh, it was Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander. It was both of them.
Yeah.
So, well,
Nice
combo
duo.
deal.
It's a good duo right there.
Yeah. Which I always thought, you big J journalist that's on here, I thought if your last name alphabetically came before, you should be first in the line. I don't know. Maybe I'm making that up. Doesn't matter. I'm an idiot. Anyways.
Well, put me first then.
Yeah. Yes, it's true. I start doing that. But either way, they put out an article about who was college basketball's best high major coaching hire of 2024. And maybe even least shocking than the season ticket sales going out for Arkansas, John Calipari was the number one best high major college hire of 2024 at 43.4%. The only one that no one's even close, but the second is Dusty May at Michigan at 21%. So I don't really think
the worst
this is,
one, dude.
Yeah, I don't think this is a shock.
He's gonna be fired in 3 years.
And the coolest thing about this is like it was a jury of his peers. You know, like the Matt Norlander and Gary Parrish, they do this summer series every year, which is awesome. And they come out with several articles about it, and they do like a big catch-all podcast. It's not trying to promote anybody else's work, but they do a really good job with it. But they interview more than 100 Division I college basketball coaches, and it's very strategic. It'll be head coaches and assistants. It'll be high major to the lowest major to get just kind of a full viewpoint from the sport. And so, yeah, to have nearly half of the vote from your peers, that's really good. Yeah, 43.4%. BBN, sorry, Mark Pope, 8.5%. I mean, that was third place, but that's pretty low. So did you lose the coaching trade here? Maybe so. People were talking. I did notice in the others receiving votes category that Eric Musselman did receive a vote. So somebody thought that was one of the best. Well, somebody thought it was the best high major hire of 2024.
It's an objectively good hire, right? Eric Musselman at USC, like,
makes sense.
Yeah. I think so.
Especially because what USC's basketball has been doing for the last, half decade or a decade, ain't like much is going on. Curtis, I want to ask you, how much of this do you think, like if they had done this vote the day that Cal got hired, I feel like it would have been a lower percentage, right? Because just in a nutshell, you think, okay, John Calipari, clearly one of the better coaches in basketball, but it's not like his PR had been super high this time last year. But I think seeing what he's already done this summer and seeing the roster he's built and seeing Arkansas just really hit the ground running, how much do you think that maybe gave him a little bit more street cred than he already had?
Yeah, I think that probably definitely helps. I will say, I think it would have been different if it was, polling media or polling fan bases. But I do think that, other coaches, fellow coaches who are kind of in the trenches, they're not as much of prisoners of the moment. And I love how even in this article, they go through and they kind of have some anonymous quotes from these coaches who voted. And I'll read a couple of them. The first one, the only Hall of Fame guy someone hired, period. That was his quote as to why he made the vote. True. This is true. But I think it goes to show you that people in the industry still have a ton of respect for what Cal's doing, even despite the NCAA tournament lack of success the last few years. Calipari is the best hire. His track record at every stop is the highest level of the sport. Arkansas may sneak into his best stop with all the power in reserves and fans. And the backdrop of less attention will give him some freedom to breathe. He'll enjoy it there. Another one, Cal stayed too long at Kentucky. He knows that now, but I talked to him on the road, and you can just tell that a weight has been lifted off of him. I'll be shocked if he doesn't go to another Final Four. He's going to win big again. He has everything he needs to win big again. Hand me that Kool-Aid. Somebody.
I was like, Curtis, you should not have read that, dude. I'm about to be
buzzing,
man.
Nips are hard,
wants
dude.
to talk hoops with me now, man. I'm about to be over the top obnoxious.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, see, that's funny. Like, I mean, the one that was just the shortest one of only Hall of Fame guy someone hired, period. It just kind of sums it all up. It's like, like he is in the Hall of Fame. But going back to the voting and all that, I'm not trying to talk trash, but I'm just being honest. I am shocked that Muss was not even in, like, it's the lowest guy that has a percentage is Kyle Smith at Stanford at 3.8%. You're telling me that Kyle Smith at Stanford, I don't even know who that is got more votes than Eric Musselman at USC? I don't know. I was a little shocked to see Muss not at least crack in the top 5 of the major coaching hires.
Well, the reason he didn't is because he doesn't get along with the other coaches.
No, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
They probably
Nobody
didn't
would
want to vote
publicly
for
give him props.
It's a weird deal. I mean, we remember that from like SEC basketball media days where a lot of the coaches there are hanging out with each other and catching up and rubbing elbows. And this was very cool. Don't get me wrong, but Muss was hanging out with us.
Yep.
I mean, he was with us. The media that would travel there, he'd eat lunch with them and hang out. And so that was great. But he wasn't just working the room with all the other coaches, his counterparts there.
No, in fact,
oddly enough, the one he probably would have been likely to do that with would have been Calipari. Calipari liked each other.
Yeah. Because in fact, Curtis, you remember he was doing the opposite. He was actually talking about the coaches he hated the most in SEC. Like he was going off about the ones he hated. I was just wondering because when they did the other receiving votes, I wonder, is it kind of like in the college football playoff rankings, like it goes by the order of the amount of votes that they had. So like if they're listed second to last, like Eric Musselman is, that means he had the second to last most votes. Danny Sprinkle at Washington's dead last. So I don't know. That'd be really funny too if he was not only there, but he was receiving votes of 1. So you got to count down. They're like, oh, he was actually the 12th ranked ones,
right?
And that's how it's done. But man, yeah, it's hard not to be when everyone's already excited about Razorback basketball. Like it's getting fever pitch level, but stuff like this is just kind of like, man.
Is this rat poison? Is that
Yeah?
Okay.
Yes.
Grade A rat poison.
Mm-hmm. But I don't care. I'm gonna try it out and see what happens. I'm gonna
as long as the players
poison.
and coaches don't read it, we cannot let them get their hands on that.
No. In fact, I'm kind of curious what Cal will talk about if some preseason poll comes out and Arkansas is ranked 12th or something. Just throwing it out there. But what will be his reaction when he's asked about it? Is he going to be like, "Oh, we don't look at that stuff," or is he going to be like, "No, honestly, I think it's too high." I don't know where they're getting at this. I mean, this is a team. I can tell you right now, we don't look like the 12th ranked team in the country. Playing it like, oh yeah,
that's the one. John Calipari is a very big. What we are to now is not what we'll be at the end of the year, guy. Very, very big on that. Be patient. He
would do that. He would always kind of be I don't know what they're basing that off. I mean, I know we've won a lot here, but yeah.
Yeah, it was like that team that he had that was like that didn't win the championship that they started. Was it 38-0? I think I remember going into the NCAA tournament, they were asking about this and like him being like, he was just like, I don't even think we're the best team in the country right now. And I was like, you went undefeated in the regular season. How do you what do you mean? But yeah, he's going to play that. He's going to play that type of part in it too. I did want to show this tweet. So his tweets, I have his notifications turned on. I do for all the major coaches, which by the way, Dave Van Horn never tweets. So if he tweets something, somebody either got a hold of it or
he went on a tear this summer though, when he was in the Cape. He was living it up on that trip. Yeah,
dude. Like, so and Pittman doesn't really tweet that much either. Like, to be honest, like he does some retweets here and there, or, if they get a recruit, he's, turn that damn jukebox on. But Cal, he puts out some interesting tweets and some things, but I just love this tweet right here, guys. Like, he just says, thank you to the ladies of Pi Beta Phi for the gift basket for Ellen and I from City Supply. And he's got this, little Razorback stuff in there and some buttons, looks like a little letter and all that. That's not what I want to talk about. It's just sitting in the chair. What I want to, look at the pictures in the background. That is John Calipari with a guy named Michael Jordan. And I believe John Calipari with a guy named, I think someone said in Twitter it's LeBron James, but can't really tell. But either way, just casual stuff that's in the backdrop right there for Cal. But focus on the gift.
That was a very calculated flex.
Mm-hmm. Man.
In many ways.
Like, imagine I just want to look at all of his pictures that he has in his office and just see all that's there. But I just love that. He's like, hey, yeah, thanks to this, the Pi Beta Phi or whatever for this gift basket. But actually check out the pictures in the background of Michael Jordan and me. It's like, I love that. But here's the thing, coaches do that all the time. Like, I know Dave Van Horn always does that when he has his trophies for College World Series in the back. If he's ever doing something on like Fine Bomb or whatever, he's got his hands on his legs like this, kind of flexing out a little bit and got the trophies in the back. So I don't blame him though. I don't blame him at all. Let's see. Yeah, people are already reacting to it. It's like Addison's like, hey, that just fired me up talking about the excitement that everyone was talking about with Cal. I mean, yeah. If people weren't fired up already, they got fired up again. But if they were fired up, now it's just fired him up even more because of that stuff. So, and also Sam Pittman's meeting at the Little Rock Touchdown Club again. Completely forgot about that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, this is that time of year, I guess. So yeah, apparently he had a wardrobe malfunction.
Well, here's the report from In the Pod with J-Rod. He said that he took the tie off.
Oh, I'm not going to go through another season like that, so I'm going to start by taking this damn tie off. All right.
Okay. When I hear wardrobe malfunction, I think nip slip. So I just threw me off there. Okay.
With Sam Pittman, you started thinking of some horror stories. You're like, wait a minute.
What happened to that man?
Malfunction, Sam Pittman. Oh, no.
Yeah, that would have been rough. But yeah, like the head coach of Razorback football is always the one that speaks first, at this point. So not surprising. However, I'm gonna be honest. Next Monday, Brett Favre's coming to the Little Rock Touchdown Club. So, dude,
that's fun.
Yeah, shout out. Shout out.
He sent me a crazy text message the other day. I'm just kidding. Because Brett Favre, he sends pictures of his.
I was gonna say, was it a picture or?
Trust me, guys, he's excited for this trip.
Jeez. Well,
good Monday show right here.
Well, I will say that also about the Touchdown Club. If you guys remember, that was remember when they had John Gruden on, and that was after the first time he'd ever spoke to anybody after his firing at the Oakland, and then they had Ed Orgeron on the first time he ever spoke to anybody after his firing. So I was like, dude. It's kind of like the rehab center, and Bobby Petrino, it's like, hey, go and talk to the people and rehab yourself. And, it's a safe place. It's a safe space to do that. So,
if Arkansas goes 8-4 this year, thank no one other than David Basil.
Yeah, that's it. Just give him a shout out. Well,
Ed O was really good when he went to the Touchdown Club. He told some funny stories.
Yeah. What was it? He's like, we're firing you, coach, but we're going to pay you $19 million. He's just like, no, just tell me where I need to sign and what do I need to leave out of, something like that. But yeah, it's that would be pretty interesting. By the way, Ed Orgeron, speaking of when he was in Little Rock, actually got into a fight at a local establishment in Little Rock that next day. So that night, I should say.
Dude, he tried to fight a parent at a camp, like a high school camp. The summer before he got fired at LSU, there was some parent of a player that was at the camp, like some 14-year-old, and he was like chirping him about it, and he was like, you want to say something to my face? You want to say it to my face, man? Come on. Tried to fight him.
Like that. Yeah. Did he have a shirt on?
I think maybe he took it off. Who knows? But he was getting feisty once things ended there at LSU.
Jeez. Well, and I'm pretty sure he's just hanging out in 30A and Destin and with 19 million and just trying to hook up with some, fine ladies that are down there that may be looking to hang out with Coach O. But hey,
he, former Arkansas something. Was he a GA at Arkansas?
Assistant strength and conditioning coach. Yeah. Quick on that. Mike Irwin. I remember me and him used to do a radio show together way back in the day. And Mike Irwin told me that the only thing he ever had with Coach Orgeron when he was at Arkansas is he said that he was trying to film a practice where he was always allowed to do it. But he said that some guy with a big gut just stood in front of his camera and kept saying to him, Coach said, cut it. Coach said, cut it. And apparently that was Ed Orgeron. That's what role he played. He's like, hey, go tell that guy to stop filming because you're not doing anything in practice. Go up there. And so that's what he did. Coach said, cut it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. I was like, well, that is pretty cool. Arkansas, the place where they have so many great coaches, assistant coaches, GAs, people from the state of Arkansas that never ended up coaching at Arkansas but had success elsewhere. One of the.
You remember when Lane Kiffin was going to be Arkansas's head coach because he was 1.5 years old when Monty was the DC or whatever?
Yeah, that's right. He grew up in Arkansas. Dude. He grew up in Fayetteville.
They were like born and bred in Arkansas.
Yeah. Or for like that 2 years that Pete Carroll was a GA under Lou Holtz. They're like, oh, he's interested, dude. Like, okay, sure, whatever.
The hypothetical Arkansas coaching staff is the best of all time.
Dude, it's undefeated. It's Hall of Fame level right there. The higher ed guy did ask this. He's like, would it take a Calipari level coach move for football and NIL investment for us to move into a consistent 8 to 10 win expectation?
Yeah.
Consistent?
Yeah.
I mean, because that's the name of the game right now.
It would only take hitting, on the right pieces to get an 8 to 10 win season. But yeah, consistently, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I brought this up because this is another article you were sent over to Curtis about on CBS Sports once again by Gary Parrish.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. This was a great one where it says, candid coaches, what is the most amount of NIL money someone has asked you or your staff to pay for a player? And again, it's all anonymous, but I'll be honest, Curtis, I was a little shocked. I thought it would be more than what it was. I'm just saying.
Well, okay. Yeah, I agree. And so I went and read, and this is a long article, but I went through and read it, and they put some caveats in there because, again, they poll 100 different coaches, and it's at all levels. So if you ask a Power 5 coach, what's the highest amount he's been, requested of NIL from a player they're recruiting versus a low major coach, those numbers are going to be totally different. And so that skewed it. So you look at it and it's like, okay, what's the most amount of NIL money somebody has asked you or your staff to pay for a player? 10.4% was $2 million or more, which is absurd no matter what. Between 1 and 2 million was 40.6%, and then less than $1 million was almost half at 49%. But that probably takes into account the mid majors and the low majors. They're not even wasting their time talking to the dudes who are going to ask for that kind of money. But there was some fascinating stuff in here. I mean, basically, again, it's all anonymous, but one coach was talking about how they offered a kid $50,000 in NIL, and he just acted like, and he averaged like 4 points a game at the school he was at. And the dude acted like he was just insulted and wasn't having it. And it's gone from, a kid who would get 50,000 just a year ago is 200,000 now. And a kid who would get 200,000 a year ago is asking for $1 million now and getting it in places. And that's how quick the market has changed. It's absolutely nuts. I don't know if you guys had time to look at it or not, but let me ask you this question. What do you think the biggest number that was thrown out there when they asked these coaches, what's the highest amount that a recruit has asked for in NIL money? What do you think that number is?
Is this just college basketball, by the way?
It's college basketball, yes.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to say, is $5 million too small?
I was going to say 5, if just as far as asking, not getting, but asking. Right. I'd say 5.
Good job. 5 million was the number. One coach said that his staff was asked to provide an NIL deal worth $5 million to ensure that he enrolled. And obviously that didn't happen, but that was the highest asking price. So,
Curtis, let me ask you, like, just gut feeling, what player do you think that was? Like, who do you think that was?
Coleman Hawkins?
I was going to say Coleman Hawkins,
maybe. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say too. Because I'm like, dude, yeah, he feels that, knowing the type of things he was doing, I was like, man, that guy's like 5. And they're like, no. And he's like, 5 too.
I don't like to talk bad about kids. I really don't, but I don't like Coleman Hawkins. Like, I will gladly hate watch him when he's at Kansas State this next year.
He would have been good for content, but yeah, he's a polarizing character. No doubt about it.
By the way, no shame in getting your money. Like, I don't begrudge anybody for that, but just like, based on the vibes I was getting, I was just like, that doesn't seem like the kind of guy you want to like bring in to fit in with other good players. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he's going to be a little bit of a case. But yeah, I'm gonna hate watch him a lot at Kansas State.
And so it's funny when we were working with the other establishment or whatever the heck we want to call it a few months ago, but we would get on the show and the question would be, well, how much NIL money does it take to to put together a championship caliber team in college basketball? And I remember saying, it's like 3 to 5 million. 3 to 5 million is where you're at. And some of the questions that they were asked and the quotes they were getting back was literally people who were getting, 2 to 3 million 1 year ago. They thought, hey, we could build a roster that could really compete. It could get us into the Sweet 16, Elite 8 rounds of the NCAA tournament, and then you never know. And now it's legit. If you don't have $6-7 million a year, you ain't competing from a talent standpoint. That's nuts how much the market has changed so quick.
I'm sure
it'll go up from here. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're just not going to do it.
I'm sure everyone will just relax one of these days.
Well, I know it's always going to go up, but what it's going to take to make it go up like overnight is a team wins a national championship because of one player that they got that they paid $2 million for or whatever. As soon as that happens, everyone's like, there it is. That's the recipe. Got to get it. Like, got to pay that guy. But I still think there'll be people that still pay a lot and it'll still increase. But I still think people will be like, okay, well, one player's not going to, make you a national championship contender right now. We can get this other guy for a lot less. That's almost as good. So they may try to go that route. But yeah, all it's going to take is that one, Kemba Walker type player that just is the reason why they win a national championship, and people will flood flood the NIL for that.
Yeah. And I will say, and I've heard that the number one recruit in this upcoming class, 2025 class, AJ DeBanza, like he's almost the most no-brainer, number one draft pick type guy that there's been in a while. People are speculating that he could be the guy that just kind of completely breaks the mold moving forward. Like if there were ever a $5 million player on a one-off, like he would be the dude to get it. So I'm really interested to see. And he's got a bunch of heavy hitters on him. Nate Oates is trying to make a push at him too. But BYU is one that people keep talking about. And it's crazy because when Arkansas was recruiting those international guys a few months back, it's like Igor Dimon and Nolan Traore, and people were like, well, why would they give up a professional contract to come play college basketball? And the whole thing was, well, they can actually make more in some cases in NIL. And BYU got one of those guys, and they've got that new coach over there who's replaced Mark Pope, and he's like an NBA guy, and apparently they just got a boatload of money. So if AJ DeBanza goes to BYU, it's because he got $5 million, is what I'm saying.
Jeez.
Big money, boys.
Just craziness. Yeah. It's craziness.
I would want $5 million to be a Mormon for a year. Or follow those rules, I should say.
Yeah, that's probably what it would take at minimum.
I got to have my coffee in the morning. That's all I'm talking about.
Yeah. And also you got to make sure you get a good soak in while you're there too. Let's see. There was something else I was going to bring up too from the comment section, but a lot of people, when they start commenting, I lose. And that's why I try to star them, but I can't ever go back to them. But I don't know. Maybe I'll see it here in a second. A couple other things real quick. We'll play a little over-unders because I know we're got about 15 minutes left here on this one. And we want to remind everybody that we are, of course, brought to you by Hopper Termite and Pest Control. All of you who are out there dealing with pests, dealing with termites, dealing with all these bugs, things that you don't want, especially in the rain when they start trying to come into your house, ends up being a problem. Well, look no further than getting Hopper Termite and Pest to hook you up. They're going to take care of business, take care of you. And any type of treatment that you need, they're going to do it and eradicate it, and it even lasts through the rain. So call them today at 479-750-4070 and use promo code MyLastNameOfNeighbors, and you get $50 off your very first treatment. Again, promo code Neighbors gets you that $50 off. You can check out the website at callhopper.com for more information, but give them a call today and get rid of those termites and those pests with Call Hopper at 479-750-4070. All right, guys, over-unders. Now, well, some of these are pretty general. Some of these are pretty basic. Some of these are straight to the point, but we'll start with that. How about this? Just over-under wins for Arkansas football, 5.5.
Right out the gate hot here, eh?
Right, yeah. Might as well get it over with and get it going.
Well, and I'm going under. I'm going to go under. And here's the thing for me, though. I do think that Arkansas is going to win a couple SEC games. I do. The Oklahoma State game is such a swing game to me on whether or not this team is going to be able to make a bowl. And right now, I haven't seen, like, I haven't watched Oklahoma State. I haven't seen Arkansas in action yet. I don't know. And so I lean on, the top 25 team holding serve at home. So I'm going under right now.
I'm going to go over. I ultimately, just spoiler alert, I think when I make my full season predictions, I'm going to have Arkansas at 6-6. That's just right around where I'm at. I think the over-under is at the correct number, frankly. Not to say Arkansas couldn't go way over or way under. I just feel like that's the correct number where you're going to get the most action, because I think a lot of people are kind of in that range. Like if it were 6.5, I would feel pretty confident just being like, okay, under. They're not going to beat LSU, Oklahoma State, A&M, and Mississippi State. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. I feel like 5.5 is a good number. So I think, Curtis, to your point, I think the Oklahoma State game is just massive. Yeah. But I weirdly enough think there's a path to 6 without it, as stupid as that may sound. And who knows? We could change our. Yeah, I was just going to think LSU at home, Tennessee at home, Mississippi State on the road. Not saying they're going to win any of those games, but I just feel like there's a route somewhere in there. Then maybe Missouri, maybe they go into that Missouri game 5-6 or something like that. You would need a weird game if you're going to lose to Oklahoma State. But I think there's a tentative path to 6-6 even without it. And of course, if they win week 2, then you're like, this team's probably going to a bowl game, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would think so too, and I'm going to go over, but not by much. I still think, when we get our final predictions on there, but 6-6, 7-5, maybe that's about as good as you could have. But I still think this team's going to be better than what they were last year. I still think that they're going to win, not all of them, but there's going to be some one possession games that they actually win this year because they don't do stupid stuff. So, I still think 6-6 is where they're going to be, and I still think they're going to go over, but not by much.
Let's just talk about this for a second. How many games are you like if they played today in where they're supposed to play? How many games would Arkansas be favored to win? They're not going to be favored at Oklahoma State. Like I would say, not a lot. I mean, obviously you got like UAB, Pine Bluff, Louisiana Tech. Would they be favored if they played at Auburn right now? No. A&M and Arlington, doubt
Mississippi State on the road. Well, Mississippi State on the road would be the only SEC game I think that they could have a chance of being favored, which would be like
and they won't
one.
Yeah.
Or
I mean, like Missouri, you're probably looking at a 10-point underdog. LSU, Tennessee, I don't see them being favored as of right now. Now, who knows if LSU if they get hammered by USC week 1, I could see a route to when that game happens, them or Tennessee, maybe you're favored. But it's like you're not going to be favored in a ton of games.
No.
And again, betting odds don't really matter. But I just feel like you're saying for Arkansas to go over 6 wins, or over 5.5, like they're going to have to win at least 2 games that they're not favored in.
Yeah.
The 3 lines that are out right now, like the early ones at Bet Saracen, obviously they're minus 52.5 against UAPB, but they're 10.5 point dogs against A&M on that neutral, and they're 9.5 point home dogs to LSU.
Yeah, I think if I had to guess, I'll say that 9.5 against LSU is closer, but I still don't think they're going to be favored. I think it'll probably be like 4 or 5 points.
Yeah. I was trying to think of like, what do you think will be the largest spread at close? So like when up to the game, Arkansas ends up being like, is it going to be Texas probably? Be the largest one?
But they're going to automatically get 3 points for being the home team.
Yeah. But the road games, unless Missouri is just really as good as what everyone says, they don't have a difficult. Yeah. None of the road teams are going to be that level.
If Missouri is what people think they'll be, it could be that one.
Yeah,
yeah. Auburn's going to be like 5 or 6 point favorites, I'd imagine. Like not a huge favorite.
Mm-hmm.
A&M is a sneaky one because it's neutral. So like, say A&M looks really good because what are they 10 right now? Is that what you said? Say A&M just looks awesome, and Arkansas loses by 14 at OSU. A&M, I could see getting up there being a double digit or like a 2 touchdown favorite.
If Arkansas struggles at Oklahoma State and then loses that game at Auburn, and A&M's 4-0 or whatever, that could be
that could be a 17-pointer.
Yeah. Well, no matter what it is, it doesn't matter though because Arkansas is still going to be in a position to win the game, and they don't. Even if Arkansas is 0-4 going into that game and Texas A&M's 4-0, that's what's going to happen each and every time.
We're going to find out if Matthew Shipley really is a clutch kicker against A&M. I'm going to just say that now.
Well, and let me throw in this too real quick about A&M. I didn't realize this. So they opened the season against Notre Dame. I knew that. So that's number 7 team in the country.
That's cool.
They play McNeese, but then they go on the road to Florida. Then they play Bowling Green, and then they got Arkansas. So there's a chance A&M could be 2-2.
They could have a couple L's. Yeah.
So that game could be, if Arkansas beats Oklahoma State, even if they lose to Auburn, say Arkansas, what would that be, 4-1 going into that A&M game?
3-1.
3-1?
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. So then, Arkansas, what would they be, like 4-point underdogs? 6?
It's interesting.
Yeah.
This feels good. I cannot wait to bet on games this weekend. I can't wait.
Yeah. And feel so confident and then lose them all is what I'm going to do. So can't wait.
Arkansas winning 6 though, over 5.5. What are we talking about? Come on.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
There it is.
Well, very, very, very few people who cover the sport for a living agree with that, by the way.
No, I know. I've seen a lot of
that's what makes me scared. And I applaud people who don't subscribe to groupthink, and I realize that's kind of what I'm doing right now. But like, I just went through Brett McMurphy's bowl predictions. Arkansas wasn't in it. I read like 5 or 6 things in the past week where it's like, oh yeah, everybody but Arkansas and Mississippi State and Vanderbilt and the SEC is going to make a bowl. And I'm just like, damn it, can it just be one game better than that? At least just make a bowl, man. Come on.
Oh yeah.
But you're right. There's absolutely a path to them doing that.
Yep. Okay. I can't remember if I asked this one or not. I don't think I have, but over under 11.5 starts for Taylon Green this season.
Under.
Yeah. That's literally one game.
Yeah.
That's a good one though. I like
Can't
that.
miss one game. Yeah. In college football, with a semi-running quarterback, it's really hard to not have that guy get banged up.
Yeah.
I'll even tell you the game that he doesn't start. Louisiana Tech.
I like that. Will Connor Nolan start?
What if they're at 6 wins and Louisiana Tech's as bad as, it's kind of looked at that they are, and he's banged up, turned an ankle or whatever, I could see it. I could see it.
Yeah. Which, by the way, did KJ started every game last year, right? I know he didn't the year before, but he did last year, I'm pretty sure.
Did he start the Mizzou game?
I was going to say maybe Criswell started that Mizzou game.
Maybe he did, actually. Okay. I should have
said
said
a ton.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, well, forget that. How about 10.5? You guys still taking the under? Should have made it that.
Probably, man. I don't know. That's so tough. But he hasn't really been injured, has he? Taylor Green, and I'd have
He's
to go
played
through
a
and look.
lot. I don't know if he's missed. Maybe he's missed a game here or there. Here's what's interesting about this: is the 2 bye weeks. You kind of get a little bit of
That's a really good
2
point.
different moments to refresh. So they might
maybe.
Yeah, if he's like banged up and they're like kind of, oh, should we start him? It's like, you got that bye week in a couple weeks. Just get him there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. Because again, it's a crapshoot no matter what. But here's the thing. I think KJ, even if KJ didn't start the Missouri game, it wasn't because he was hurt. It was for other reasons.
Well, that's another thing. What if he just gets benched?
Then it's a bad year.
By the way, did you guys see that the dude who took Taylor's job there temporarily at Boise State beat out the USC transfer?
I did see that.
Was it Malachi Nelson? Is that his name? The guy he beat out?
I think so, yeah.
Dude, yeah, 5-star player. That dude, him and Ricky Town, man, former transfers of USC that just couldn't find it. Couldn't find
Remember
a way.
JT Daniels from USC? USC loves having 5-star quarterbacks that aren't good.
Yep.
They love it.
Does even like Matt Barkley, he was supposed to be like the next coming of Matt Leinart type, and he was fine, but he wasn't great. Mark Sanchez played 1 year there. Mark Sanchez.
Barkley cost himself like $7 or $8 million, because if he would have left after his junior year, he 100% would have been like top 2-3 quarterback in the draft. And he comes back for his senior year, ends up being like a 4th or 5th round pick, out of the league in a year. Boom.
Yeah. Sometimes
Tyler
it
also cost himself a lot of money by coming back to school. Should not happen.
Well, sometimes it doesn't always happen that way, because I remember when Sam Bradford came back for his final year, and then he got hurt for the whole season. His final year, blew out his knee. It was done.
But then he still went number 1, right?
Exactly. So I was so sometimes, it can hurt you, but also sometimes it doesn't even matter in that case. All right. Over under 55.5 penalty yards per game for Arkansas, because this was their average last year. So over under.
Please.
I don't know, that extra false start from Blackstock.
Or lining off or lining up wrong on the punts. Got to remember that one.
I'm going to go under. I'm going to say this. If Arkansas is going to go to a bowl game, they better be under this. You know, if they're going to do some of those exceeding expectations, you got to win all the variables. So I'm going to go under on this. They didn't have a huge penalty problem in the first scrimmage. Sounds like that reversed in the second, but I think they can figure this out.
And and he mentioned just a bunch of holding penalties in the secondary. When he would be teeing off on that after scrimmages in past years, it was like we got false starts, we got holds on the offensive line, and we haven't really heard much about that kind of stuff. So yeah, maybe there'll be a little bit more discipline there this year. Who was the was it Brady Latham who just
penalty
machine couldn't figure it out last year, and he just kept
Yeah. Because I looked at it, and I'm pretty sure I have it right, but Arkansas actually had the most penalties of any team in the SEC per game, but still was like 11th in penalty yards. So
nothing more,
so it means they get penalized a lot, but at least it's only 5 yards. So it's not those personal fouls that get them. It's the stupid stuff that should be completely unavoidable.
Who gets the first targeting call?
I think that it's going to be either Nico Slaughter. I'm going to say that it's going to be a defensive back. I feel like it's got to be a defensive back. I'm either going to say Slaughter or Jalen Braxton.
Okay.
I was thinking Worth.
I was thinking Worth.
I was thinking Worth.
You just talk about him so much, and it's like, oh man, he's coming on. He's a freak, and he takes somebody's head off right away, and it's like, oh, see you in a couple weeks, dude.
And the only reason I said those two guys is because I feel like every time it's targeting, it's always somebody that Arkansas actually really needs to be in the game.
Yeah,
like it was always Jalen Catalon, or it was remember Quincy. Well, I remember Quincy McAdoo got that one in Kansas, which they tried to suspend him for the half a game at the beginning of the season the next year.
They did that to Hayden Henry.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
How funny is it going to be if Quincy McAdoo makes a miraculous comeback and he, transfers somewhere else and he's like going to rejuvenate his football career? You got to sit out the first half, buddy. We'll see you in the third quarter.
That would be, man.
That would be rough.
I think linebacker too for that reason though, John. Like I think it would be funny if first targeting is like Xavier Sorry, where it's like, good Lord, now we immediately are. One down there, but I think someone said, in the J-Rod said one of the Metcalf boys. Yeah, I think the Metcalfs are a safe bet. One of them in this year is definitely committing a targeting.
Didn't one of them basically do that in the spring game?
TJ, I think got kicked out of the spring game.
Man, you got that's saying something. You can hold that with pride. You got kicked out of the spring game.
I think he also got injured. It was like targeting and injured.
Yeah,
and
so it was definitely a head deal, right?
Yeah. Well. Also, too, if you're going to do it in the freaking first half against UAPB, not the second.
Yes.
Please. Like that's just, it'll be the stupidest thing ever. Their best defensive player gets ejected because in the 10 minutes left in the third quarter against UAPB, they get a targeting call.
Curtis, you know what it was with the Hayden Henry? It was he got targeting against Bama the year before. Mm-hmm. Then Grant Morgan got a targeting like the first or second drive of the first game. So you have like 2 quarters of Andrew Parker where he had to like play a good bit, and then Hayden Henry came back. But that's why Andrew Parker, we were all kind of like, hey,
Fall Camp legend, Andrew Parker.
Yeah. Well, and then also I remember when there's probably Bob Holt or somebody asked Hayden Henry, like, hey, what, you getting that targeting penalty or whatever last year and everything. He's like, after the game, I always got ice cream for my dad if I ever had a big hit. So after the game, we just went and got ice cream last year. It was like
good times.
Well, that's good. At least he's consistent there. All right, over under 0.5, or I guess a half successful onside kicks for Arkansas this year.
Under. People, dude, outside
Jake Bates
of
walking through that door.
Yeah, Jake Bates ain't walking that door. I mean, just the numbers on onside kicks historically are bananas. They're like 4% or something like that. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, but hey, I'll say that Scott Fountain, his onside kicks. I think Arkansas's had 2 successful onside kicks under Pittman with Fountain. Pretty sure.
Trying to remember the other one.
I wanted to say it was a year that I want to say it was in the COVID year, like 2020. I could be completely misremembering.
No, maybe so.
So I don't know. I have to go back and look.
Yeah, I need to look at that too.
We know one. We know for sure that one that was like the best onside kick ever, like done. So,
hey, shout out to Brady G. He already wants to bench Hudson Clark for the Oklahoma State game. He's seen enough.
He might be benched for UAPB if 2-pick TJ keeps coming on strong.
Yeah. Maybe that'll be his route back into the fold is when TJ gets ejected for targeting. Then he's back in
there. You go. Yeah. It's a good backup plan.
They bench him and then he gets put back in. That'd be funny.
That would be, yeah. Also over under 1.5 overtime games for Arkansas this year.
God.
Over. I'm going over.
I'm going to go
under.
Over too.
I'm going to go under, but I think they're going to have one.
Yeah.
I'm going 3.
Because last year they just had the one, right, against Florida.
Yeah. 1-0.
And the year before that, did they go to overtime with anybody?
Kansas.
22, Kansas. I feel like there was another one.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm making that up.
I'm trying to remember if I've covered an overtime game in the press box at Razorback Stadium.
They didn't go with Mississippi State a couple years ago, but they came close. I'm looking at the 2022 schedule as we speak, and I do not see an overtime game.
Wow. Okay.
They tried to go with Liberty 21-19.
Well, but they went in overtime in the bowl game against Kansas that year, right?
Right, they did.
Okay, okay, just making sure that's.
Yeah. I felt like there was more than one.
Yeah,
but there was not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they could have gone into overtime against Ole Miss in 2022 or 2021, but they chose to go for the 2-point conversion, didn't get it. So
right. But in 2021, they did go Cam Little game winner at LSU,
Yep, at LSU.
16-13. So Sam Pittman's overtime record 3-0 at Arkansas. Am I reading that right?
Yeah.
That seems to be big facts.
Openers, post-bye games, overtime games. That's the ticket.
That's how you get it done. That's how you get it
we're
done.
really good in overtime. I'll tell you what. We just got to get the game to OT. I'll tell you what.
Get the game to the 5th quarter.
God.
The guys are holding up the 5.
Man.
Or in the case of Matt Jones back in the day, they're holding up to 7 for 7 overtimes.
I guess at that point you'd have to have 12 because you've already gotten the quarters and everything too. So yeah. Overtime sucks in college football now since they changed the rule and the stupid 2-point conversions.
Yeah, it's not
because Bielema and Penn State had the longest overtime game of 9 overtimes. I'm like, shut up. No, you did.
28-26.
Yeah, exactly. Just like nothing but 2-point conversions. Like, no. Back when America was great, you had guys out there just 25 yards out every single time.
Shout out to that Kansas quarterback. Jason Bean is his name. Do y'all remember Kansas? The reason they lost is because they ran that weird reverse thing with the backup quarterback, and then he just airmailed that throw.
Which if he
I saw him playing in an NFL preseason game the other day. And Jalen Daniels, the actually good quarterback they had, he's still at Kansas, and he's nasty. But I was like, Jason Bean. I was like, how do I know that name? And I was like, oh, Kansas, it's that guy.
Oh, man. Like, yeah, he should if he just would have tucked it and run, he probably would have gotten it.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Whoever he was throwing to, he missed it by a good 8 yards.
Yeah, that was a wild game.
Congratulations to him, professional football player.
NFL. And finally, this over-under once again, no way of guarding it and grading it, but 2.5 times per game Petrino showing the broadcast.
Oh, you could have put this at 6.5, bro, and I would have still been like, probably over. Yeah, they're going to show him a good bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess if he's going to be in the booth or on the field is going to be, because if he's on the field, they'll show him a lot more. If he's in the booth, they'll still show him, but I don't know if they'll do it as much. Because the booth
I do think he's going to be on the field, though, right?
I mean, I would think. So
it should have been over under 2.5 times they show the neck brace photo. Like that's a more realistic over under.
Yeah.
Or just like any footage from his previous tenure. Like that I think should count. So it's like,
yeah, they'll show all like some of the plays and stuff. And yeah, I mean, it'll be, I don't know. Like Petrino, I think is always more of an on-field guy, but I wanted to say at A&M, he was in the booth last year.
He's definitely done it before where he's been in the booth, but I just like in my brain mentally, I see him on the sideline. So I hope he adheres to that.
Yes. Yeah. That's where he belongs. That's where he needs to go.
Well, and T-Will, am I wrong in thinking that T-Will is up in the booth?
I think he is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also, because that was the whole thing about Enos was always up in the booth and was like, everyone was like, we don't know what he's talking about. And like, it was just weird. But then
they cut his mic off in the second quarter and like he had no idea.
But I think Guyton came down on the field like during that. And so it was like, oh man, this is, our other guy was up there, but our real guy's down here. And it didn't matter in the end.
I used to love when Kiffin was the OC at Bama and he would like be on the field and he'd be like putting his arms up before the play even happens.
Yep.
I want some of that kind of stuff with Bobby.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Pittman bickering and like that'll be a thing that we talk about on the post-game show. Oh, him and Pittman,
Yeah. I don't think Pittman is the bickerer of that group. Like it would my money would be on him and like Mateos. I think Petrino and Mateos may like get into it. Yeah. I could see that.
By the way,
Pittman's more just like, hey man, call the offense type thing.
Can we agree as a society that it's just stupid and pointless to ever like overanalyze sideline or outside conversations when it's like staff player, staff, like whatever. Those moments are heated. It's a very tense atmosphere. It's very normal for these people to yell at each other and then get right back to work. Like I always think it's so annoying when people try to like really make conclusions on stuff like that. Unless, of course, like it's Antonio Brown and the guy like literally takes off his pads and whatever. But like when people are like, oh, saw so-and-so yelling.
Yeah. No, it's over the top, but they're always going to talk about it. All right. So, and finally, we got a few videos here we want to play. Apparently, we got evidence of the wardrobe malfunction.
Okay.
That's not a Janet Jackson type thing, but here's Sam Pittman here.
You guys ever scroll through pictures if you don't have Wi-Fi and you scroll through? Well, I had one of last year of me. And if you don't mind, and no disrespect, but I had this same damn tie on. And I am not going to go through another season like that. So it's going to start with taking this damn tie off.
Yeah.
Let's go.
It's the tie. The whole time it was the tie.
Good for him.
Number 2, I get on that fancy bus they meet us with, and my damn belt exploded. Yeah, I didn't forget it, Frank. It just exploded. So luckily, Baz is put on, and he came to my rescue. So thank you for gaining weight, my friend. You did a great job.
Oh my goodness, great. Okay. Wow.
All right. That's a perfect reminder for everyone out there who's been so irritated about the results and everything. It's hard not to love Sam Pittman, the man.
Oh
You
man.
know? He's the man.
Dude.
That was really good.
Yeah. Well, because I hadn't heard it, and I saw that, Andrew, you talked about the tie thing, and I was like, okay, that's a little fun. But saying your belt exploded, like, listen, I am someone who has fluctuated in weight, like there and back a lot, and I still wear the same belt I've had since I was in the 8th grade, and I just don't know how you have a belt explode. Like,
I've had buttons explode.
Yeah, buttons. But belts, like, and assuming it's a nice belt, I don't think he's buying some old crapperware. But like, it's a leather belt with a metal buckle. Like, how does that explode off of you? Yeah. Anyways, well,
You sucked in too much. I don't know.
My first at bat in high school baseball, the first pitch that was thrown to me came in hot, and I tried to like Olay out of the way, and it hit me right in the belt buckle and exploded my belt. I don't think Sam Pittman got hit with a fastball, but
never know.
I do have a belt
Never
explosion
seen.
experience.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe that'll be on the next episode on Hogs Plus about his button exploding when he was on the Little Rock Touchdown Club.
Appreciate J-Rod for sending us that. That was good.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, that was clutch. Sometimes, since we're in the middle of the show, we may not always get those things. But also, I wanted to play this clip real quick too. This is actually kind of funny about the Razorback football players talking about their favorite, like, Sam Pittman quotes or Pittmanisms or whatever you want to call it, and ended up being pretty entertaining.
Favorite Pittman saying? Yeah, go Hogs.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you. Go Hogs.
He says fair a lot, and I think that's funny.
Fair.
He'll like say something, he's like, is that fair? And like, even if it's not fair, what are we gonna say? That's fair?
You got to go back to the OG.
BAM!
What we're doing is we're doing it for a reason, baby. You got that, baby? All right, give me some. All right.
God dang it, Scott! Turn that damn jukebox on, man.
Yeah, turn that damn jukebox on.
Turn that damn jukebox on.
Turn that damn juice box on.
Turn that jukebox
Juice
on.
box.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Embrace the hope.
There it is.
Yeah.
That was the one.
What happened to Yes Sir? Did he retire? Yes Sir.
I think he got tired of it because people were probably like using it against him and making fun of him for
He
it.
still throws it out there from time to time
Yeah.
with the recruit things, but those are some good ones. There was a very glaring omission there, but it's also something that we may or may not have removed from his vocabulary.
Yeah.
No
Nothing
things
of
of
that nature, man. How about that?
Things of that nature.
They looked over and were like, we're not supposed to say that. Never mind.
Yeah, they probably had it when they written down for the sign that they say, asking the question says underneath is like, do not say this phrase.
I
Cannot be
also
that.
just, we have to address the fact that Nico Davier is under the impression that he has been saying juice box.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe he misspoke there. I don't know, but like, does he think that's what he's been saying all these years of turn
I
that damn
hope
juice
so.
box
It
on?
probably
What is
sounds
juice
better.
box?
Yeah. Well, also too, another thing that I wanted to bring up was Vito Calvaruso saying, God dang it, Scott, as in Scott Fountain. So I'm like, so is that what's is he like just screaming at Scott Fountain the entire practice? If that's the one phrase that you hear, it's like he's yelling at Scott Fountain.
God
Like,
dang it, Scott. We get a punt blocked every 2 games.
yep. Get him to line up
Oh,
correctly on the punt. Man. So yeah, when I heard that, I was like,
That's pretty
okay.
good.
Yeah.
Vito's just like sitting there. He's like, what's your favorite Pittman for another damn missed kick, Vito? Damn it. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that, like I said, if it was honesty, maybe we would have gotten one of those too. So
RIP Max Fletcher, because it would have been nice to
he didn't die. Just let's make sure we say
Showed a
that.
nice Australian man.
yeah, you know what I mean? But it would have been nice because he had that funny interaction with Sam Pittman last year. I'm sure he would have had a good Sam Pittman, Australian Sam Pittman impression.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that would have been good. And finally, last one, guys. We'll wrap up this because I know we've gone a little long. But today was first day of school for many people, unfortunately, because the traffic is awful. So, your first days of school, what is always the one thing, and it didn't have to be for one specific year, but like, what was always the one thing you just remember the most about your first day of school, like every year, or something consistent every single time? Because I know what mine is, because I'm a weirdo. I remember the smell of like everyone's cleanly like sharpened pencils, back when you had pencil sharpeners and you actually had to use those. I remember that. And I remember always having that rubber cement, like, because I don't know why we had to have rubber cement. But yeah, the smell of it and all the teachers saying you can't smell it. But I remember that. And then just the smell of the cafeteria. That's pretty much all I have.
Yeah, I think definitely the cafeteria, and then just finding out who my locker buddy was, like which lockers were beside me every year. I was always anxious about that. And like we had 2 rows of lockers, and it was like, do you get a top locker or a bottom locker? If you get a bottom, people were dropping books on your freaking head all year. And so, yeah, the anticipation of the locker was a good one for me.
The seating chart, I feel like in the class is a big one where it's like kind of figuring out the vibes of, do we get to sit wherever we want? Do we have to whatever? And like kind of mapping out your routes for like, if you're going between classes and stuff like that, like, especially in like junior high, high school, kind of saying like, oh, I'll see so-and-so, or I'll have this class with so-and-so. But I always think in college, I loved a good syllabus week. And so, when I was at Louisiana Tech, we were on the quarter system, which is different than semester. It's split into 4 quarters, summer, winter, all that. So it's like about 9 weeks each. So there really wasn't as much of a syllabus week because it was like a shortened period. You don't really have time. But syllabus week, for all you college kids listening, you don't have to go. Yeah. You really, first couple, you can probably wait till about the 3rd or 4th to really hit the ground running.
I taught college classes for a lot of years, and syllabus week was my favorite week. There's nothing better than not having to have like some kind of slideshow or lesson plan. You just pass the things out, and you're like, okay, let me just read out loud what you can see right in front of you, and then
any questions?
Yeah. No, that syllabus week was awesome, but back when, again, it's elementary school, thinking of roll call, when they always had to do like they named, they said your names and you had to say here or present or whatever. And because I'm weird like this, for whatever reason, I remember my alphabetical order of my kindergarten class. I don't remember it for any other school or any other year, but because of it being kindergarten, I remember exactly whose name is in alphabetical order for my kindergarten class.
Man, I was really shy when I was younger, and I used to hate that for the first week because I would always get the Stephen Wilkerson, and I have to go, it's Curtis. And I had to do it over and over and over. Hated that. I used to dread it, man.
I used to dread, same thing. I used to have so much anxiety over that to the point where when I got to college, I finally just said, I don't care. I don't care what this professor in this class of 150 people says and so like I had classmates in college who would call me Pierce. And because like they would just, I just went with it. And so like I'd be with some other buddies on campus and be like, oh yeah, Pierce, what's up? And they're like, dude, just call you Pierce. I'm like, yeah, it's my name, man.
Dude. Yeah. Well, see, my name's John, so it never like came to that. But I do remember when we got to high school, there was a biology teacher that we had. His name was Mr. Lemons at Fayetteville High School. And he was one of those that kind of said, hey, if you go by something different when I call your name, just let me know. And one of my buddies, actually, hopefully doesn't hurt me or have a problem with me calling him out. Tim Carver, former Razorback baseball player, was in the class. And, he was high up on the chart of alphabetical order because Carver. And he's like, Tim Carver. And Tim just goes, I go by Oscar. And did not bat an eye. And he's just like, okay, Oscar. Dude called him Oscar the entire year. And we all changed our names. Like just for that. And we had a guy, and I'm not kidding, his name was Cody Starks. And I remember hearing, he said, I go by Young City Hustler. And Mr. Lemons called him Young City the entire year. It was the coolest thing ever.
That's amazing.
Did y'all used to do that with subs? Like when the sub would come and like you and your buddies, like I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm Curtis Wilkerson. Do that thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'd get in trouble and it'd be like, you're still Curtis Wilkerson. Like, yeah, I'm Curtis Wilkerson. Write me on the board. Write me,
Yeah. No, that's like those were those were the simple times where you could just, that was the entertainment that we got in school and everything. So, all right, guys, any final thoughts before we roll out? I know we went pretty long today, but actually, I actually do have something. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I have to give an update real quick from our good friend Carlton. Safa of Saracen and Bet Saracen app. We want to set the record straight because this is something that apparently has been going on. He actually got a phone call from someone who is a 7-figure NIL donor, and they are extremely frustrated that $500,000 that was given to the Razorback Foundation by Oaklawn, that it's being viewed as some sort of big gift, even though it's tax deductible. So just know, folks, that if you give something to the Razorback Foundation, something like that, it's not to the NIL. NIL doesn't get any of it, and it's a tax deductible thing for companies. So just want to make that clear for anybody that's asking out there. And also, well, go ahead.
I was going to say, we have tentatively thrown it out there that we will moderate a debate between said casinos. If need be.
Oaklawn and Saracen. Yeah.
Casino wars, man.
Dude, we would love it. It would be so much fun. And then it's like, we wouldn't just sit here. We try to do the route of being, extremely objective and asking the questions. We wouldn't lean towards one way or the other. But I think it's something like that would be really entertaining and interesting and educational. It's like, all right, so what's going on here? Why is it this way?
I call dibs on being the guy who can mute everyone's mic.
There you go.
Like they do on the presidential debates. Trump, shut up.
Yeah. And just be like, maybe there'll be some good, some fire gets thrown. Maybe they start saying things we don't understand. We're like, yeah, okay, sure. Throwing out numbers. I don't know. It'd be really fun. But yeah, just to be clear on that, folks, get the 50-50 deal done.
Yeah.
Get it done, Arkansas.
It's time.
Let us do it. Let us have some fun with some, not only making some more money, but also let's get some real good money for the NIL programs at the University of Arkansas.
You just heard some of the numbers that we talked about and where this thing's headed. It's getting crazy. There's no such thing as enough NIL.
Yeah. Which, by the way, Carlton in the chat, thank you for watching and listening. Carlton says, I'm 100% in on this. Let's talk. So let's get the debate going. We'll do it. Make it happen for you. So yeah, get the 50-50 deal done. Appreciate everybody listening in. Watching in to Inside Arkansas Live. Be sure to subscribe to Inside Arkansas on our YouTube channel. Also check out our website at InsideArkansas.com. Always keeping you up to date on the latest and greatest of all the Razorback stuff that's going on. And hopefully we have some pretty big news going on this week. Maybe a little basketball news. We'll see. But we'll continue to talk about that. For Andrew Ellis and Curtis Wilkerson, I'm John Neighbors. Same sports show, same sports channel. Tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.